Adam, I know you said that sign behind you is a little blurry, but what does it say?
It says question everything.
Question everything. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you also said something about asking why. What are you asking why about in your life right now?
So the question everything, the intent of that is not conspiratorial, although that can be fun sometimes as well. It is to look at the way things are done and appreciate that just because they're done a certain way doesn't mean it's the best way to do it. And frankly, it rarely means it's the best way to do it. And getting to the bottom of that starts with the question why. And if you can get three layers into why, you actually start to get some pretty interesting and useful information as to why something is or is not a certain way.
Hmm.
So where I'm spending a lot of time on why, I mean, right now is particularly relevant is in building a intentionally lean business and product in the world of AI that has to be and think entirely different than we had to be and think 5 years ago. And that takes a lot of whys. Like, why are we doing it? Why are we doing it that way? Why does that make sense? Maybe why doesn't it make sense? And really getting down to what it is that we're trying to build and what value we're trying to deliver.
Oh, the three, five, or seven whys and peeling back the layers and the onion. Ah, I I was actually just talking to an executive client today, and one of the things that we're trying to work on is creating a little bit more time before meetings to look at the why. And it's funny in leadership development, we try to avoid leaders using the word why to people because it causes people to react, causes them to get defensive, it causes people to feel like something they're doing is wrong. But like the whole point of this why is actually to look at it with a sense of curiosity where it's you actually kind of hope to find something that's not working, to mold it, to change it. Um, when you say like asking why in this age of AI, why we're doing things a certain way, can you expand on that a little bit more in terms of like, okay, so what's like the answer to those questions? What's the outcome that you're finding?
My current company started as a series of spreadsheets, and those spreadsheets were developed over a decade building an e-commerce business. And it was the foundation for that company and drove a lot of the success in that company. So after that company got acquired, I took some time and did a lot of other things, um, driven by a performance coach that made me do that, which was brilliant at the time to not just go jam another startup into the world. And so when this, when I went to companies that my wife and I had invested in and asked them if I could help and got under the hood in the businesses and realized the problems that they had were really similar to the problems that my e-commerce business had. And so I re-implemented some of those structures into those businesses and it changed them. So that was like the aha, this is organically found. This is clearly a thing that could be helpful. So it starts as a software business. And that's in 2022, which is like the very beginning of AI. So then SaaS was still a thing. It was still a thing you built stuff around and they still had crazy margins and you could build scalable products and whatnot. And so that's what it started as, but the world has changed. And so as we've gone with my incredible but small team, taken that product to market and seen what is around the horizon and started to use a lot of that stuff from an AI and development standpoint, we have to constantly ask why we're doing something and why a customer would pay for it and why if in 3 months the average computer user, whether it's 3 months or 3 years, nobody really knows, but if it's in 6 months, why the average computer user is going to be able to create their own version of some mild solution that's being problem solved, why would they pay us for that thing? And those are hard questions to ask, but they're important. It goes back to your point. I mean, I appreciate from a leadership standpoint why the question why would be triggering, but I think a lot of it comes down to delivery and environment and intent. Why from your 3-year-old as a parent can be triggering because there's in a lot of cases there's not a real construct behind it. It's not a curiosity yet. But as they get older and they get to 5 and 6 and 7, there is that curiosity there. And I think that is a beautifully glorious thing. The why is just such a valuable question when used correctly.
Hmm. And if we can see it as not something that is challenging, but more so as something that is intentionally curious to create growth, I think it alters our own perspective and our frame. And it's invaluable, but we have to make space for it.
Yeah. It can be uncomfortable, but in the discomfort is there is a lot of value in that uncomfortable place.
Hmm.
And I know that we have a tendency as at least as first world humans to sort of avoid discomfort as much as we can. If it's too hot, we put on the AC. If it's a little bit too cold, we put on sweatshirts. And that's not bad. That's just a position of where we are. But in that discomfort is where most of the value is, from my perspective.
Hmm. Thinking about your journey up to today, our audience may or may not know a decent amount about you or not. I'm curious what some of the major why moments that showed up through the twists and turns. Would you mind exploring or sharing some of them?
Absolutely. I think my the first big like materially life-changing why started 2 companies ago. It was a medical device company that I was not a founder of. I went into right out of college. It was like an apartment phase device company. And we spun off a tech piece that was built around insurance reimbursement that I was a small partner in. And it got to be quite an ugly place. And when I manufactured my exit from that situation, which was very strategic, and I can't believe it actually worked the way that it did. Going into BottleKeeper, which was my next company, I looked at everything that I had spent the prior 10 years doing, which was big and heavy because it was medical devices in multiple states and delivery vehicles and warehouses and like so much stuff. And we spun off this tech thing and it got bigger from a revenue standpoint in 18 months. And it was like, 5 people in cubicles executing documents and stuff. It was like, wow, that's clearly there's a better way to do that. So going into the BottleKeeper, I I put a hard guardrail on trying on building, not trying, like we were going to build a scalable business that had 0 employees. And if you tell somebody that, they look at you like you're insane because everything that every news article, every business publication is all like, you got to raise tons of money and you got to, the point is to build teams and it's to build these big, huge things. And we got to be $1 billion company or else. And I mean, at this point, it's like, you got to be $1 trillion company or else. And I spent an incredible amount of time in why during that phase. Why can't I do it? Like, why can't this be done? 10 years earlier, it would have been very difficult because technology wasn't where it was in 2013, 14. But in 2013, 14, like you could pop up a WordPress site and this is like early Shopify. You could make all the things talk to each other if you were good at putting them together. And I like puzzles. I like complex things. And so the why drove entirely that out. I mean, the outcome from start to finish, but like the why can't I do it this way? That's why I framed a thing that says question everything on my wall. I mean, I've had that for 15 years. Why can't I build it with no employees? Why can't I travel the world with my wife for 6 months of the year and operate this business from anywhere in the world with internet and do $8 million a year in sales with no employees? Why not?
I imagine that's a real life example.
Yeah.
Or even Starlink.
This is way before
Whoa.
Starlink. Yeah,
What it, all
this
right.
is like 2015, 16. And today's look, I'm going through a lot of whys right now, professionally speaking. Today it's totally different. Like, I don't know, can I get a company to 100 million with 3 people? I don't know. I don't see a reason why not. Today we're operating with a different set of rules than I was in 2015.
Hmm.
We're able to do that then. Moving physical products, like totally different situation.
Yeah, and so a lot of the whys that you've been sharing are around limits, like limitations, like perceived roadblocks that we have. It's like I have a goal and I'm going to achieve that goal, and people are saying that that might not be achievable, and let's say why. Is it was the goal always clear? Because was there something that you were oriented towards and that you were intentionally trying to achieve, and then you were questioning why, like to create that, or was that constantly evolving over time, personally or professionally, depending on like what you were trying to work towards in life?
I mean, I think it's important. Evolution is really important. it started with a I'm going to start this business with my cousin, which I said no to for a year, and then finally said, why am I saying no to this thing? Okay, fine. We'll go and test it and we'll go and do it and we'll use data to prove whether or not people want it. And we did that and it worked. And then it evolved. And as it evolved, I intentionally put constraints. And that word is very important. I intentionally put constraints on the business that forced us to solve problems in other ways. One, we were not going to raise money, which meant that it had to be profitable. Two, I wanted to build it in a way that had zero employees, which meant we had to solve problems in other unique ways. And I couldn't find a reason why that wasn't going to be possible. Now that evolved as the business evolved. I mean, that year in 2016, we did 8 million in sales with no employees. 4 million of that was in the month of December. $4 million in a month in a company that has no employees. Like the wheels were falling off the wagon rapidly. So that was in the evolution of like, why am I doing this the way that I'm doing? It had to change. And we hired our first person in January of 2017. So I think it's why is a really valuable question used correctly or used proficiently or used with intent and curiosity. But so, the looking internal and self-reflection is equally important and appreciating, why you're doing something a certain way and appreciating that it may need to change and evolve. And that's where growth comes from.
Hmm. Is why only a tool when you're stuck or trying to solve a problem? Or are there examples where you used why just for consistent growth, again, personally or professionally? We're using business examples, but I think this is also just about living.
I think there are there's no question that it pervades like anything you do if you're an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship doesn't sit in a bucket in your life, generally speaking. It whether or not you want it to, it has a tendency to pervade everything because it's hard to get away from. And I think that's just part of the reality. And there are things that we need to do to be cognizant of and set up structure in order to appropriately deal with that. So the questions of why, I mean, yeah, like why are we living in Manhattan Beach where it's
Yeah.
everything is abusively expensive and now I have a daughter and I'm looking around and seeing what the kids are exposed to at a young age. And it's not the way that I grew up in a small mountain town with tons of freedom and flexibility out in the woods. So why are we here? Why
Hmm.
are, you know, why are we doing this way? And does it fit what we see as a family, which prompted a massive move to Montana 6 years ago? Um, I mean, I think the why can't I do that or why can't we do that is a little bit more of a structured why, but it's a really important why.
Hmm.
Because I think at the end of the day, again, if you get two, even three layers down into that, you might get uncomfortable, but you start to uncover some really important things.
Yeah, sometimes your why is because I'm afraid. And so, or I'm, like you said, sitting in the discomfort. Yeah, you've made some pretty pretty massive decisions that some people would look at and just say, "Oh yeah." Uh, so I would actually would love to hear it. Like, so you were in Manhattan Beach, you're living. What is life like? And then what led to the why question around why are we living here?
The lifestyle we had in Manhattan Beach was very I mean, we lived in a house on the beach in Manhattan Beach for a decade before we had kids. It was it was epic. It was fantastic. It was a great place to be before kids. And it provided us with access to incredible people. Like everywhere, you're going to find some great and some awful, and you got to find your people, and that's important. When COVID hit, we were in Tahoe on a ski trip, and Manhattan Beach like was turned off. You could not leave your house. And we lived on the beach, which is awesome, but we couldn't go on the beach and we had no yard. And at that point, we had a 10-month-old or a 12-month-old kid. So we couldn't go back there. So we stayed in Tahoe for 3 months. We rented a house and stayed in Tahoe, which again, that to some people, I mean, I certainly know some of my family thought it was crazy. Like That sounds crazy, but the reality is the our life over the course of that next 3 months was kind of amazing. I mean, I feel bad saying that because it was really not amazing for most of the world, but I mean, we were in Tahoe in a house in the woods, like you just went outside and you could do anything. There was food in the grocery stores, and we spent an incredible amount of time outside. And then, coming to the end of that, as things started to open up and loosen a little bit, we started having like why are we going back to that?
Hmm.
And then we went back to it and it was a disaster. It was like literally when, it was like there was riots and Antifa stuff. They were like tweeting that they were going to raid all the houses on the Strand in Manhattan Beach, and we're back there. We're going to leave our kids with my grandparents there. It's like, no way. So we just literally we booked flights, went to Montana, bought a house.
Wow. Not,
It was bold. I mean, it was
yeah, yeah,
ridiculous in
yeah,
hindsight. Like
yeah,
it was
no,
just look, you don't have to commit to do anything forever. Like
yeah,
that's a big thing that I think people really misunderstand is the decisions that you make rarely are they decisions that you have to commit to forever. I mean, I don't know. I mean, kids is one of them, at least that should be one of them. Outside of that, like if you do it and you try it and you don't like it, go back. Try something else. Like you're
yeah.
not committed to it.
You
It's
can always
okay.
move, you can always move back. Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
Like commit
but
to it for a year. Go rent a
mhm,
place for 6 months.
yeah, it's it's neat how you kind of had this forced revisit to what you to kind of how you grew up, which is nature. You're kind of saying
Mhm.
you're exposed to it. I imagine having a kid being able to go to the woods, like not have a lot of the headlines of the world pressing down on you. Yeah, if anyone is thinking of wanting a change in their life, like is there a way for you to get like a mini experiment and trial? Because if you have that experience and you love it, and then you try to go back to what life is normally like, and you realize it's not what you want, why not make the move? You can always move back.
It's all an
Yeah.
adventure.
Hmm.
And there's so much value in the adventure.
We forget that. We forget that it's that we're here to play and we're here to have an adventure and explore. How are you adventuring right now, Adam?
Well, so it's summer in Montana, or early summer in Montana. I This time of year we spend an incredible amount of time out in the woods. I mean, I by the time this airs, this will have already happened, so it's okay for me to talk about. I'm on Sunday taking a group of active duty special operations men out into the Montana backcountry for 5 nights to go and do epic Montana stuff to get them out of their cycles of deployment because they're gone 280 days a year doing things, very difficult, dangerous things in places that we don't want to be. Um, and that is always an adventure.
Wow. Is that something that people have just reached out to you for, something you've organically created and it's a service? Or is this just like some people know you and they're like, Adam, you are the wilderness expert.
Nah,
You're the
no,
Montana guy.
it's not that. There are there are plenty of people in Montana that are far more Montana than me. No, I'm involved in a nonprofit here in Bozeman called Big Sky Bravery, and I'm a task force director there. So I'll lead a team of 4 volunteers and generally, yeah, 4 or 5 recipients on a what we call a task force. I do that twice a year for a week.
Oh, wow. What's the, how'd that get, what's the origin story there?
A guy named Josh McCain is the founder. His brother-in-law, Jeremy Keller, was a he's retired now, but was a special forces guy. And did like 18 tours over the course of his 20 years or 18 deployments. And he would come back to the US from these deployments. And Josh noticed that every time he came back kind of in worse shape. And one of the times he came back, they came to Montana and they didn't live in Montana at the time. They had some connections in the Bozeman area. So they came into Montana and went out in the woods for a couple of days. And Jeremy came back from that experience changed and basically said something to the effect of, "Can I bring my buddies?" And then he brought some buddies, and they came back completely decompressed. You think of it like when this is the way it was explained to me actually by Jeremy, is that they take these guys, and let's be clear, there are women that do this as well.
Mhm.
We have female task forces that are operators as well as female task forces that are the wives of the men that come and do it because they all have kids. The wives are holding down the house for that 280 days a year that the husbands are deployed in places they don't know. Like it's a very difficult situation for everybody. But with the men, they go and they put them out in these, insane high pressure, literally life or death. I mean, this isn't like business consequences where if you screw it up and do it wrong, you lose money. And they come back and it's like they're a compression cylinder. And every time there's just a little bit more pressure in the cylinder and they get like they go up to a 10 and then they decompress, but they only decompress to a 2. And then the next time they go back up to 10, but they can only decompress to like 3. And every time they come back, there's only so much more room for decompression in that tank. And what we are able to show them and do with them takes all the pressure out of the tank. It's like a full reset in a very, very unique way. And they go home, generally speaking, they go home different men.
Incredible. How did you get connected to that organization?
Through a local friend, Sam Machino.
Yeah.
I'll give him the shout. Yeah.
Okay, Sam.
Who's been involved in it for quite a while. Yeah.
Wow. Incredible work. And what
Yeah.
value of yours, like what are you feeding when you're out there with those guys?
There are a couple of ways that, everybody on the volunteer side adds something different. And that's important. It's like we're making a soup and we all are an ingredient in the soup. Montana is a big ingredient of the soup. I mean, doing this in Phoenix, Arizona is going to be an entirely different situation. So it is the wilderness and the rugged and the, little bit of danger with brown bears running around and being on rivers and climbing mountains doing the stuff. That's a big part of the soup. But from a volunteer standpoint, part of it is also that these gentlemen don't have a lot of exposure to civilian just because of what they do and what they do, more or less. So their exposure to civilian is what they see on TV, and that's not good. Let's leave that at that. So part of it is getting them some exposure to civilians that care. Show them that there are people here that really care. Um, the other part is many of them are coming toward the end of their career. At 20 years, they retire full benefits, and many of them are to get into this line of work. They're generally in the 15 to 20 year ish range of their career. And these guys will go and do the craziest things in the craziest places under the ultimate duress. And the scariest thing to them is what to do when they retire. Is like what happens next because they've been in the military their entire professional life, like since college or since high school. So us being able to help them understand what some options are, and myself as an entrepreneur, that is a pretty good option for a lot of them because it takes that, like they're pretty good at dealing with duress and making decisions under stressful situations, like real stressful situations. And that's entrepreneurship, except we're not going to die if we screw it up. And so, I mean, even as an example, like our director of operations at Pentane, his name is Lauren Bell. I met him on my first task force. He was a recipient about to retire.
Wow.
And so he came and did an internship with me. And it's exactly that. Like this guy's been operating under real duress with real consequences, having to make the hard decisions in that for 20 years. It's pretty easy for him to, try to make decisions around how we're building some financial rail and there, it lends to that very well. But not everybody wants to do that. I mean, we have a lot of resources to be able to point them to, and that's really helpful for them.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate you giving a little bit of context to that great work and kind of what it means to you, and then especially also what it means to them. And just there's so much happening in the world that we're not aware of. Like it's great. It's just to have an example, broaden your horizons and overall just kind of what how else you can still like you can build a company, you can have a family, you can have a bunch of hobbies, which I've seen in your bio, and you can still volunteer and you can be gone for an entire week in the wilderness doing things that feed your values. What have you had to say no to? To be able to
A
say yes
lot.
to the things that you're doing.
Now, as you're saying, as you're going through that list, that's the immediate thing that comes into my head is you have to get really good at saying politely, no, a lot. You have to guard your time
Mhm.
very, very carefully. So I think of it, and I mean this very seriously. I think of it when something comes up that represents an opportunity or an ask from someone else. Is that thing worth doing at the cost of the time with my kids? Meaning, if I say yes to that, it needs to be so good that I'm willing to give up that time with my children. Because right now I have young kids I that like are around the house and they really like me and they want like we we have they're 5 and 7, so like we're in prime epic kid time, and my time with them is at the end of the day the only real thing that matters. So it needs to be something that I'm willing to give up that time with them to go and do. And clearly there's yes to a lot of those things, but it also means there are an incredible amount of no's in there.
Mhm. How do you get so good at saying no?
Practice. I said yes way too much for way too long. And you get to the point where your schedule is full and you don't know with what. And again, like you don't know why. Like, why am I having these meetings? Why am I doing these things? Why am I this person wants to pick my brain? Like that sounds fun. And let's be clear, like I want to be helpful and I will be helpful, but there are other ways to be helpful. I mean, generally when someone wants to pick my brain, what that means is they want to sit down for coffee in 30 minutes and get 10 years worth of information downloaded in a 30-minute coffee. And the result of which is they'd leave unhappy because they didn't get what they want, but what they wanted was not realistic.
Hmm.
So we were better off me saying, now is not a good time. Or if you have some very specific questions, send them to me and I'm happy to answer them, than for us to spend that time together and you walk away disappointed.
Hmm. Yeah. The pick my brain is I have a goal that I'm trying to achieve and I think I can achieve it through you. And I really hope you can make the introduction or hire me or create this opportunity and door. And there's so many other ways to get that information.
Yeah, just
But
ask.
yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
let's just start with ask.
Yeah.
Like, I want an introduction. Great. Who do you want an introduction to?
Just
And can I make it?
be direct
Yeah,
about it.
yes. I mean, I'll tell you yes or no. We don't need to have coffee to do that.
Hmm. Now I'm sure there's
That's
other reasons, but also that's just
yeah,
one
for sure.
example.
For sure. I
Um,
mean, honestly,
this
most of the time it's like I have a consumer product idea and I want to talk to you about it. It's like, well, okay, that's fine. What specific questions do you have? Because we
mm,
can't sit down and you just say, I have this idea. Tell me what to do. Like that's not a
mhm.
reason. That doesn't work. Or I need to do online marketing. Like, how do I do Facebook marketing? It's like, my goodness. I mean, people do like their whole careers around that one thing. Like I can't, I'm not going to be helpful in that case, which is going to be a waste of both of our times.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is they want like you saying yes, you being there creates maybe like a little bit of a afterglow. Like it motivates them and inspires them. It proves that maybe they're worthy and that they're valuable and that their idea can work. And it's a source of motivation, but there's other ways to get it. And it doesn't have to take up a 45 minutes of your time plus commute.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I'm really sensitive to that. The challenge is that the answer to the question, is my idea good, doesn't matter.
Hmm. Yeah, powerful.
Like it doesn't. My opinion about whether your idea or is good or not is completely irrelevant. You need to go test it and let your consumer that may or may not pay money be the one that tells you whether it's good or not.
Mic drop. That has
Yeah.
been incredible, Adam. Uh, any final thoughts that you just wanted to share but haven't had it, didn't get the right question for it right now, and before we end?
The only thing I would add, and I think this is important from an entrepreneurial standpoint because it feeds your ability to make it through the wild ups and downs, is to push physical limits as much as you safely and healthfully can. Because as you expand your physical limits, it really opens your aperture, like really opens your eyes to you start to understand what you're capable of, which is dramatically more than what you think you are. And that makes everything else easier. It makes all the decisions easier, and it really like resets your perspective on what difficult is. And I have gotten incredible value from that specifically, both as a dad and as a husband and as a business operator, from going and doing very hard physical things relative to your baseline.
Mm, yeah. And physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, like all hard things.
Yep,
All so
absolutely.
I immediately went to this idea of like, yes, like sweat as much as you can, get out of breath, like break a bone, like get dirty, get messy, but then also, yes, like hard problems, build something, like feel like you're gonna invest, feel like you're gonna fail, like all the things. And that just makes you stronger. Thank you, Adam. Where can our listeners find out more about you and follow your journey?
I am spending a little bit of time on LinkedIn. So you'll find us there. I mean, professionally speaking, you can see Pentane at pentane.com, see what we're doing over there. Starting to create a little bit of content in and around YouTube, trying to be helpful with the early stage e-commerce stuff. So that's about it. I try to stay off the socials as much as I can.
Well, I appreciate the bit that you are on it, and I appreciate your time today. And if you like it or not, your voice is out there now on this social. So I do thank you for your wisdom again, and I'm sure our audience thanks you too.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.